"You're just trash that my son picked up." Those were the words that froze the dinner table. My fork slipped from my hand, clattering against porcelain. The sound echoed in the silence that followed. My husband, Daniel, stared at his plate, pretending not to hear. His mother looked away. And his father, Mr. Coleman, sat at the head of the table, swirling his wine like a king passing judgment. I'd spent the whole day cooking for them, trying to earn a place I thought I already had. But that sentence shattered every illusion. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I only smiled, the kind of smile that hides a plan. Because what he didn't know was that by sunrise, 3 messages would land on his phone, each one written by me. And each one holding a truth sharp enough to cut through his pride. I used to think the worst sound in the world was a plate breaking. I was wrong. The worst sound is laughter, directed at you, wrapped in politeness sharp enough to cut. That night, the Coleman dining room gleamed like a stage set. Silverware lined up perfectly, crystal glasses reflecting the chandelier. I'd spent hours cooking a full-course meal, rosemary roast, garlic potatoes, everything his parents loved. My hands smelled like herbs and hope. When Daniel's father, Mr. Coleman, lifted his glass, I expected a polite toast. Instead, he smiled that thin smile of his and said, "It's amazing what you can buy these days, even wives." The table went silent. Daniel cleared his throat. "Dad." But his father kept going. "You know, Sarah, I warned my son not to marry beneath him." I said, "Love fades, class doesn't." He laughed softly. Turns out I was right. Every word landed like a slap. My chest burned, but I smiled. A small, brittle curve of lips I'd practiced too many times. Mrs. Coleman sipped her wine without looking at me. Daniel stared at his plate, cutting invisible food. "Sir," I managed, voice trembling, "I didn't realize I was a topic of investment." He chuckled. "You're not. You're the write-off." The air left the room. Even the chandelier seemed to hum with embarrassment. I pushed my chair back. The sound scraped through the silence. "Excuse me," I whispered. In the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection. Red eyes, clenched jaw, mascara barely holding. "Hold it together," I told myself. "He wants a scene. Don't give him one." From the dining room I heard Daniel mumble, "Dad, that was too far." His father's voice followed, colder. "She needs to learn where she stands. You could have married anyone, a doctor's daughter, a lawyer's niece, but you picked a girl who still rents her own apartment." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not in anger but clarity. After dinner, I washed every dish myself, one by one, while they sat in the living room talking business. The scent of lemon soap and humiliation filled the air. When I placed the last glass on the rack, I heard them again. Mr. Coleman's voice was low. "Daniel, image matters. You can't climb in this world dragging dead weight." Dead weight. That was me. I waited for my husband to defend me. He didn't. He just sighed. "She means well, Dad. She's trying. Trying." As if love was homework I couldn't quite get right. When they finally left for the night, Daniel came into the kitchen. "Don't take it personally," he said quietly. "That's just how he talks." I turned to him, calm but hollow. "Then maybe you should ask why he thinks he can talk that way about your wife." He looked away. No answer. And that was when I decided. Silence wasn't weakness. It was ammunition. I dried my hands, looked at him and said, "Tomorrow morning, he'll learn who he called trash." The next morning, I woke up to the sound of silence. Daniel had already left for work. No note, no message, just the faint smell of his cologne lingering in the hallway like guilt. I made coffee and sat by the window, staring at the Coleman's mansion across the street. It looked peaceful from the outside. Trimmed hedges, luxury cars, everything perfectly staged for envy. But I knew now what lived behind that marble front. Arrogance and rot. Still, a part of me couldn't let go of what happened. I kept replaying the words. "You're the write-off." By noon, I decided I wouldn't hide anymore. I'd face the day like nothing had happened. So when my mother-in-law Evelyn invited me to drop by for tea, I went. Her version of tea meant sitting stiffly on antique chairs while she pretended to be kind. She smiled as I entered. "Oh, Sarah dear, you look tired. Rough night." I forced a polite smile. "A little. I suppose long dinners can do that." She stirred her cup slowly. "You know how my husband is, very blunt. Don't take it to heart." "That's funny," I said softly, because it felt less like bluntness and more like contempt. Her hand froze for a fraction of a second before she resumed stirring. "You must learn to let things go, dear. Otherwise, you'll make your marriage difficult." I didn't respond, but my eyes drifted to her phone on the table, the screen lighting up briefly with a message. I didn't mean to look, but the name caught me. "Unknown, tell him to keep paying." The message vanished. Evelyn quickly turned the phone face down, her fingers trembling just slightly. Something was off. "Everything all right?" I asked, feigning innocence. She smiled too quickly. "Of course, dear. Just work matters." Work. Evelyn hadn't worked in 20 years. When I left their house that afternoon, my head buzzed with questions. Why would someone text her to keep paying? And who was him? That night Daniel came home late. He smelled of whiskey and avoidance. "Rough day?" "Yes." He shrugged. "Dad's company is going through some stuff. He's handling it." I studied him carefully. "Stuff? Like what?" He avoided my gaze. "Don't worry about it, okay? You wouldn't understand the business side." Something about the way he said it, the same patronizing tone his father used, made my skin crawl. "Maybe you should try explaining," I said quietly. He sighed. "Sarah, just drop it." He walked away, leaving me alone in the living room, staring at the faint reflection of myself in the dark TV screen. I thought of that message again. Tell him to keep paying. Paying for what? Or for whom? The next day I found my answer, but not where I expected it. I was at Evelyn's again, dropping off a casserole she didn't ask for when her phone buzzed. She was upstairs, so I glanced down. A new message flashed. "I need the next payment or the photos go public." Photos. My heartbeat stuttered. And attached below was a picture of a young woman, much younger than Evelyn, sitting beside a man with the same gold watch Mr. Coleman always wore. I stared at the photo on Evelyn's phone, my hands trembling. The young woman's face was unfamiliar. Blonde hair, red lips, maybe in her 20s. The photo looked recent. But it wasn't just the woman that froze me. It was the watch on the man's wrist. Mr. Coleman's signature gold Rolex. Before I could think, I took a quick picture with my phone. Then I heard footsteps upstairs and slipped out quietly, my pulse pounding. That night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the photo. My mind raced. The text said, "I need the next payment or the photos go public." So he was being blackmailed. But why? And more importantly, with what money? Daniel came home late again, his tie loose, his voice flat. "Your mom texted me earlier," I said casually. "She mentioned your dad's been stressed lately." He sighed. "Yeah. Something about an investor threatening to pull out. It's complicated." I studied him. "Is it about money?" He frowned. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I found a blackmail message on your mother's phone," I wanted to say. Instead I smiled. "Just wondering." He shrugged, grabbed a beer and disappeared upstairs. As soon as the house went quiet, I pulled out my laptop. I still had access to the accounting system of Daniel's family company from when I helped with their year-end reports. Old passwords, old patterns, and just like that I was inside. The numbers didn't lie. 2 months ago, $250,000 had been transferred from the company's account to a private entity called MC Consulting. No invoices, no receipts, just silence. A few hours later, another transfer. This time to a woman named Marina Chase. MC. The initials from the email chain Evelyn had received. I scrolled further and found a pattern. Payments every 3 weeks, growing in amount. Mr. Coleman was bleeding the company dry. I sent a screenshot to my own email. then closed the laptop and sat in the dark trying to breathe. If I exposed this, Daniel's family would crumble. But if I stayed quiet, I'd always be the trash they could walk on. That moment my phone buzzed. A new number. Unknown. Be careful what you dig for, Sarah. Some things don't belong to you. My blood ran cold. Someone knew. The text haunted me. Someone knew I'd been snooping, and that meant I was in danger. For days I acted normal. Cooked dinner, smiled at Daniel, visited Evelyn. But inside I was unraveling. One evening while Daniel showered, I checked his phone out of pure instinct. He rarely locked it. He trusted me too much. I found a chat between him and his father. Mr. Coleman. Keep her busy. She's asking too many questions. Daniel. I'll handle it. I nearly dropped the phone. He knew. The next morning I confronted him. What exactly are you handling, Daniel? He froze. What are you talking about? I showed him the messages. His face drained of color. Sarah, I can explain. Explain that you and your father have been lying to me? That you've been keeping his fraud quiet? He slammed his hand on the table. You don't understand how business works. Then explain it to me like I'm 5, I snapped. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like he's using stolen company money to pay off a mistress. Daniel's voice cracked. It's not what you think. He made mistakes, yes, but if this gets out, everything collapses. The company, my job, our life. Our life. I laughed bitterly. You mean his reputation? He didn't answer. That night I packed a small bag and left. I went to stay with an old college friend who worked in corporate law. Her name was Lena. When I showed her the screenshots, she stared at me. Sarah. This isn't just corruption. This is fraud and embezzlement. I know, I whispered. And he forged signatures. Daniel's included. She leaned forward. That means Daniel could go to prison too. Unless we expose his father first. The room went quiet. I realized then that Daniel wasn't just protecting his father. He was trapped by him. Lena helped me collect more documents over the next few days. Old bank statements, email trails, the blackmail text. And when I had enough, I made my decision. If they thought I was trash, then fine. I'd burn quietly and take their lies with me. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Mr. Coleman's voice again. You're not enough. So I decided to become too much to ignore. With Lena's help, I wrote 3 messages. Each one time. Precise. Lethal. Message 1 to Mr. Coleman's investors. Confidential. Attached proof of embezzlement and ongoing blackmail from your CEO. You deserve transparency. Message 2 to Daniel. You said you didn't know. Now you will. Attached. Forged loan documents with his name. Message 3 to the press. Exclusive, corporate scandal. Coleman Holdings at the heart of fraud investigation. All scheduled for 6 a.m., the same time Mr. Coleman's driver picked him up for work every day. At 11 p.m., I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker below. I'd always been quiet, polite, the kind of woman people underestimated. But silence was my sharpest weapon. Daniel came to my apartment that night. He looked exhausted. Sarah, please. Dad told me everything. He's sorry. Sorry, I said softly. Did he apologize for calling me trash, or just for getting caught? He rubbed his face. He'll fix it. Just delete whatever you've planned. We can start over. I shook my head. The only thing getting fixed is the truth. When he realized he couldn't change my mind, his voice broke. If you do this, you'll destroy my family. I met his eyes. No, Daniel. Your family destroyed itself. He left without another word. At 11:59 p.m., I stared at the timer on my phone. 1 minute left. My heart pounded. My hands shook. But I didn't cancel it. Because some men need to lose everything before they understand the value of someone they dismissed. At exactly 6:03 a.m., my phone started vibrating non-stop. Dozens of notifications lit up the screen. Message sent. Delivery confirmed. Trending. Hashtag Coleman scandal. It was happening. I turned on the TV. Every news channel screamed headlines. Coleman Holdings under fraud investigation. CEO accused of embezzlement and blackmail. The anchor's voice was calm but cutting. Sources say evidence came from an anonymous insider. Anonymous. That was me. By 7 a.m. my phone rang again. Daniel. I didn't answer. Then came Evelyn's call. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was frantic. What did you do? They're raiding the office. Thomas is having chest pains. I sat quietly, sipping my coffee. The same kitchen, same mug, but everything felt different. At 8:30 there was a knock on the door. Daniel stood there, pale, shaking. They froze our accounts. The investors are suing. Dad's, he's finished. He looked up, eyes full of disbelief. You did this. He nodded. No, Daniel. He did. I just made sure people saw it. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. You destroyed everything. Everything. I said softly. You mean the illusion? He didn't answer. Later that day the headlines turned worse. A leaked report confirmed the blackmail photos and the hidden payments to Marina Chase. By afternoon, the authorities arrested Mr. Coleman for corporate fraud and evidence tampering. The empire he'd built on arrogance fell apart before dinner. And somewhere deep down I felt, not joy but peace. Because finally, the man who called me trash knew what it felt like to be thrown away. It had been 3 days since the scandal broke. Every news site, every TV channel, every headline screamed the Coleman name. Their mansion was surrounded by reporters. Their company, frozen, bankrupt, and under federal investigation. I should have felt satisfaction. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see victory. I saw a woman standing in the ruins of other people's lies. Daniel came by that evening. He looked smaller. Not the confident, composed man I once knew. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He stood in my doorway, hands trembling. Sarah, please. We need to talk. I said nothing, letting him walk in. He sat down, rubbed his temples and whispered. You were right. About everything. He forged my name. He used me. I didn't know until I saw the court documents. I tried to tell you, I said quietly. I know. He looked at me then, really looked. I was a coward. I let him humiliate you because I was afraid of losing his approval. I didn't realize I was losing you instead. For the first time I saw genuine remorse. Not excuses. Not denial. Just broken honesty. He's under house arrest, Daniel continued. Mom's gone to her sister's place. The company's assets are being seized. Everything's over. Everything, I echoed. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. I don't hate you, Daniel, I said. But I can't go back to being the woman who cooked dinner for people who thought she didn't deserve to exist. Tears welled in his eyes. I don't deserve forgiveness. Maybe not, I said softly. But you can earn redemption. He nodded, wiping his face. I want to help you, Sarah. Whatever you're building, whatever you're doing next, I want to be part of it. He hesitated. Do you even know what I'm building? He gave a faint smile. Something that won't need his approval. That night, I showed him the outline of my new project. A small non-profit I was starting to help women recover from financial control and abuse. I called it the Enough Foundation, because I was done proving I was enough. Now I wanted other women to know they always were. Daniel looked at the draft proposal quietly. You're stronger than any of us ever deserved. Maybe that was the closest thing to love he'd ever given me. Courtrooms always smell like paper and fear. The day of the hearing, I sat in the second row, hands clasped tight. Daniel sat behind me, silent. Reporters filled the benches, cameras flashing outside the glass doors. When Mr. Coleman entered, he looked older. The arrogance that once filled his posture was gone. His skin hung loose, and his eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. The judge called the session to order. The charges were read: fraud, forgery, embezzlement, coercion. When my name was called, I walked to the stand. The sound of my heels on marble echoed like punctuation marks to every insult he'd ever thrown. The prosecutor began. "Mrs. Coleman, can you tell the court how you became aware of the defendant's actions?" "Through his words," I said softly. "Through his cruelty." A whisper moved through the room. I explained everything: the dinner, the humiliation, the text messages, the forged loans. I spoke calmly, not as a victim, but as someone who'd finally taken the microphone back. At one point, the prosecutor asked, "What made you decide to expose your father-in-law?" I looked at him directly. "Because the man who called me trash taught me what real garbage looks like. And it wasn't me." Even the judge paused before continuing. When the questioning ended, the defense attorney asked if I had any final words for Mr. Coleman. I turned toward him. "You told me I wasn't enough," I said. "But I built something from the ashes of your lies. I didn't destroy your family, you did. I just stopped pretending I couldn't see it." His eyes glistened, not with tears but with defeat. The verdict came hours later. Guilty on all counts. 4 years in prison, 10 years of probation. Daniel sat beside me, holding his breath. When it was over, he whispered, "It's done." But I shook my head. "No, it's beginning." After the trial, life quieted. No more cameras, no more whispers, just silence and possibility. The court awarded me restitution for emotional and financial damages. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to start fresh. Enough to build something meaningful. I rented a small office downtown. Bare walls, second-hand furniture, and sunlight pouring through wide windows. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine. I hired 2 women who'd left controlling marriages and needed work. Together, we built the enough foundation from the ground up. We hosted workshops on financial independence, budgeting, and legal safety. Each story reminded me of my own pain but also my power. Sometimes Daniel helped quietly, funding small events, handling logistics. He didn't ask for forgiveness anymore. He just showed up and worked. And in that silent effort, I began to see a different man. One evening after a long day, he came by with coffee. "Your foundation just hit 10,000 followers online," he said, smiling. "People are calling you the voice for women who stayed too long." I smiled faintly. "I'm not a voice. I'm an echo of every woman who found her strength." Then he said softly, "You're my echo too. You reminded me who I should have been." It wasn't a love confession. It was an apology shaped like gratitude. When he left, I sat at my desk, staring at the mission statement painted on the wall. "You are enough. You always were." And for the first time in years, I actually believed it. After the trial, life quieted. No more cameras, no more whispers, just silence and possibility. The court awarded me restitution for emotional and financial damages. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to start fresh. Enough to build something meaningful. I rented a small office downtown. Bare walls, second-hand furniture, and sunlight pouring through wide windows. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine. I hired 2 women who'd left controlling marriages and needed work. Together, we built the enough foundation from the ground up. We hosted workshops on financial independence, budgeting, and legal safety. Each story reminded me of my own pain but also my power. Sometimes Daniel helped quietly, funding small events, handling logistics. He didn't ask for forgiveness anymore. He just showed up and worked. And in that silent effort, I began to see a different man. One evening after a long day, he came by with coffee. "Your foundation just hit 10,000 followers online," he said, smiling. "People are calling you the voice for women who stayed too long." I smiled faintly. "I'm not a voice. I'm an echo of every woman who found her strength." Then he said softly, "You're my echo too. You reminded me who I should have been." It wasn't a love confession. It was an apology shaped like gratitude. When he left, I sat at my desk, staring at the mission statement painted on the wall. You are enough. You always were. And for the first time in years, I actually believed it. Sometimes the people who bury you forget you were a seed. Seedling. Speech balloon. What would you have done if your in-laws called you trash? Red heart, like thought balloon. Comment your thoughts. And bell subscribe for more cinematic stories like Sarah's.